Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shaunna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I am introducing you to a new name and face if you've looked at social media. David Pearce is a dentist from the New York area, and he has got an interesting story that we are going to dive into. First of all, David, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Shaunna. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great.
Absolutely. I was so intrigued by first, obviously we're introducing authors to my audience this season. So we definitely want to talk about the books that you've written, but your story is interesting in that you had a dental practice for a long time and you have managed to find a way to increase your reach and to increase your impact to people's overall happiness, which I could talk about all day long. So let's dive right into that. I guess let's start with a little bit about your journey thus far and how you became a dentist and what made you decide that you wanted to maybe do something a little different.
Sure. Yeah. So, general dentist, can't really tell you for sure why I chose that because there were no dentist or medical people in my family up until I made that decision, but it always seemed right and it worked out wonderfully. So it was a good decision. And I've always been a student of whatever. I just enjoy the process of learning. So in the dental field, if you choose to reinvent yourself in your practice, you can do that because there's so many wonderful courses that you can take and more all the time to just develop skills in any direction you want to. So from general dentist, as you all, the audience might picture a general dentist, so basically our practice was really kind of a surgical reconstruction type practice. And our focus were people who, just like your audience, maybe some of them, I'm sure, actually, who would even say they have a disability around their mouth or their smile or their ability to eat. So, they go to buffets and they can only eat certain foods. That they go to a friend's house and they hope they don't serve the XYZ that has tough to chew because they have to make an excuse why they had a big lunch, or photos are getting taken and I have to cover my mouth or look away. And so my team and I, developed the ability to help people, not really a fair word, but maybe get out of their own way to say yes to themselves. Like, I'm going to spend the time and money on me to fix me and make me a better version of me. But the outcome is just so amazing and so many tearful moments of joy and happiness and relief and all that stuff that gets baggaged and packaged into that disability. And so we did that for years, and I loved doing it. And yet at the same time, my wife and I, we've been in Central New York for many years. We wanted to live in a different part of the country, and so and I was looking for a different type of a career where I could have impact on people one on one, and yet be able to do it from anywhere I wanted to, as opposed to having to show up to an office. And so the idea of coaching dentists to do the same thing that my team and I were able to do, help somebody who just can't seem to figure it out, not on the clinical side, but on the how do I get the business side, the non-clinical side, so patients will say yes to more and more stuff. And therefore, my way, not only could I help, if I could help one dentist go from helping two people a year or none, whatever the number is, to 22 to 102 to 202, and do that with multiple dentists. And I feel like I could live vicariously through them. They're helping the patients, I'm not, but at the same time, it creates much bigger goodness to the universe, if you will. So that's what I do now.
Yeah. Well, it's the ripple
Yeah,
effect, right?
right.
Like you speak to one dentist and it touches many different people's lives in a way that they can smile freely and happily moving forward. I
Yeah.
love that. So I guess that's an excellent way to answer this first question, but I'll ask it anyways just to see if there's any other nuggets in there from your journey. How have you embraced this idea of starting again?
Yeah. So, I went from clinical dentist where it was just known, I'd been there for years, branding, marketing, all that kind of stuff, kind of a known name. And so there was never any uh, wonder maybe is like, will another patient come in? Will we be able to help anybody else? There's this kind of a,
Right.
there's ups and downs, but there was a steady flow of more and more people that were just looking for our services. And then so transition
Sure.
from that. And as an individual, Shauna, that for me, probably if you said, I have a good friend who his happy place is surrounded by people, laughing and joking and eating and drinking and or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And so my happy place is like at 12,000 feet by myself in the mountains and just with nature. And so that kind of, if you take my friend, for instance, his network of people is huge. And my network of people is
Sure.
really small.
Yes.
And so when you go into a new business of coaching, it's like, well, yeah, you're a dentist, but that doesn't mean anything when it comes to being a coach of dentists, much less good at it. Like, why would
Yep.
we even know of you, much less think you're good? So yeah, reinventing yourself
Yeah.
in what might seem like the same, but a very different space it's been full of challenges, and yet at the same time, as many of my mentors said, like nobody said it was going to be easy, David. So just get that thought out of your
Yeah.
head, and embrace the work and
Yeah.
embrace the struggles, because if you don't fail, you'll never succeed. So.
It's so true. It's so true. But we all want to, avoid the failures. Well, and you mentioned before we started recording that you are part of a mastermind, and I love that this is becoming a little more prevalent, but I don't think it's quite mainstream where most people know what that is. So maybe tell us a little bit about how you found this mastermind and how they helped you with this new endeavor.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, so I think I've been in more than one mastermind in my life, and they seem to be structured differently. This one I enjoy because everybody has to have a turn. So it's not the biggest
Mm,
personality gets most of the time. Everybody gets the same amount of time essentially. And you can be prepared or not prepared. Doesn't really matter. But either way, you're going to sit on what we call the hot seat. So you're going to sit in front of everybody. And in very few minutes, you're going to say, so what are the successes you've had? And we meet quarterly. So within the last 90 days, what successes have you had? To some
okay.
degree, not really, but to some degree, we're kind of keeping track of that. So you said you were going to do this, David. Did you do it?
Oh,
So there's some accountability.
accountability. I love it.
There's some
Yep.
accountability there. And then for the next 90 days, or the next whatever, year, broken down to 90 days, 90-day action steps. Here's my problems. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm not sure what to do. Here's the challenges in my business. And we pretty much keep it to business as opposed to my personal life. Although,
Yeah.
the meeting after the meeting might be about personal life stuff, kids, all those things that
Sure.
happen.
Yeah. Things overlap.
And then the group of whatever 15 to 25, too many, how many are there at the time, just start weighing in on their different experiences, and everybody's very engaged. I mean, for the most part, some people speak more than others,
Hmm.
for lots of good reasons. But out of that, you come up with ideas, and then at the end of your hot seat session, the facilitator, if you will, says, "Okay, good. So, what are your takeaways? What are you going to do? Tell us." And he writes them down. Other people may write them down. I've written them
Sure.
down. Each person writes them down. Yeah, so it's a great process to get ideas, and then it's a great process, of course, to be able to help other people by having dialogue of here's an idea, and somebody says, I love what Bob said or Mary said, and in addition to that, here's more, so we can build on each other's ideas to help somebody
Yeah,
else.
there's such value of putting yourself in a room of people who have already done the thing you're hoping to do or something similar and being able to kind of pull on everyone's experiences, but also that very reciprocal I can also give to the conversation because I have some experience to contribute as well. I love that. Well, so tell us a little bit. You said you wrote two books, so tell us a little bit about your books.
Yeah, so I would say in my dental career, that had, like, you can't even count all the number of failures. It's
Yeah.
like I'm sure a good quarterback statistics say this is how many times you got intercepted, how many times you got sacked.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but for me, it'd be like, nope, nobody's getting those stats, and I don't want to know because there are way too many of them. But I really had two good successes in my career, which was one was creating a culture in an office, creating that process in an office, a culture, putting a team together where we went from struggling to have people having the skill set, but struggling to have
Mm.
have the process of having the people actually say yes to that. Same thing we talked about earlier.
Hmm.
And so that in my visual mind, like all these skills of David were just like sitting on a shelf, never being used. And then two was, so if you do that, if you do whatever your business or service is, your noble purpose, my words, if you do that well in business and you take care of people well in the customer service part, my feeling is you're going to succeed. And so some of that success looks like the end result, but some of the end result is more money, more revenue. And so in our business, as we got better at that, there was more revenue. So the other success I had was, how do you move money out of your business into your personal life and actually have something to show for it when you decide to sail off into the sunset? Are you
Yep.
sailing off in a raft that's falling apart because you never paid attention to it, or you're sailing off in a seaworthy vessel, so to
Right.
speak?
Right.
So those are the two things, and the books are really about that part. The first one called Peak Success, an entrepreneurial guide to business prosperity. It's on Amazon and Nobles and like that. That one is really more about the former idea of like, so how do I create a business? What does it look like to create a business that truly can be successful in the way David is describing his? And then the second book, which may very well just stay like an e type book. I'm not sure if I'll actually get it published in a hard copy, but that's really more on this. So like, how do you in a tax advantage way take revenue from a business, totally legal, totally stuff, but what are all the tools that can be used
Hmm.
and mindset behind that, so you can move money into your life so that when you get to the end of the journey, and you don't know when that's going to be, right? I mean, you like to think
Right.
it's retirement age, but sometimes it happens sooner, especially in the dental field. And so you're set. Like, you don't have to have that worry of, how am I going to take care of myself financially, or my wife, or my whatever, whoever's depending on you, spouse.
Yeah.
So those
Well,
are the two books.
that's great, and we'll definitely link them for the listeners. But you're almost hitting on something that I have always wondered about, and I've never had the opportunity to ask a dentist directly. So I am going to ask you on behalf of all my listeners. I have heard the statistics around mental health and dentistry, and it not being very good. What do you have to say to that? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? Maybe, but does it hold true in your experience?
Uh, I'm sorry, you're you're breaking up, Shaunna.
It's
Did
a
I
tough
avoid the question?
question.
On to the next question. Yeah, well, I don't know what the current stats are, but I remember reading that, and so the what I read about it was that not only is it a small business and the pressures of running a small business kind of on your own.
Sure.
Many dentists, if you, it's changing a little bit. However, for me, if I look at the physicians that I go see, they're all in a group. Like, they can bounce
Mm,
ideas off each other. Whereas up until relatively recently, like the last couple of decades, maybe, but certainly even now, most dentists work by themselves, and
oh,
so
that
they
totally
don't
makes
have
sense.
a sounding. They don't have a sounding board to just complain to, if nothing else, or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
for.
yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it that way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, just from a running a business perspective, I totally can see that. And I don't think I ever made that connection either, that you're right. Most doctors do work in tandem with at least a couple others.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's that, and then of course, probably the biggest one is that not you, Sean, and probably none of your listeners, but there's a group of people that actually don't like going to the dentist,
Well,
and
yes.
that's a big surprise, right? Yeah, and so like, and understandably so. Like, you look at it and say, like, from a patient standpoint, I'm going to lay on my back, so I'm totally vulnerable.
Yep.
You're going to invade my personal space with your
Totally.
hands and your face and your instruments. And despite the wonderful, truly wonderful ways we have now of making dentistry comfortable, there can be some discomfort. And so we get to look into the eyes of people that are afraid of us and
Hmm.
what we're doing all day long.
Hmm. Yeah.
They
Wow.
express it, they sense it, they don't, it's just there. It's always there. And so combining those two, I think just the pressures of any business working by yourself, plus the
Sure.
people that you're trying to help are looking at it and saying, like, nothing personal. Sure, I get that.
Right.
But at the same point in time, everything about you is saying this is really personal because if I wasn't here, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
looking doing like this. So I think you combine those two, and that's really kind of
that
what
does
led to that
explain
very
it.
high suicide rate and so forth in all the professions. So I think we've gotten a little bit better in that, but I'm sure we're in the top five still because some of that stuff
Yeah.
hasn't changed much.
Yeah. Well, it always baffled me. I'll just say I've never been afraid of going to the dentist, so I'm a little weird like that, I guess. But
Mhm.
I love my dentist. He's amazing, and he seems like the happiest guy I've ever met. And he lies
Yeah,
to me all the time and tells me I do a great job with my teeth, and like we have this great working relationship. But I it
that's
just
right.
baffled me because I'm like he doesn't seem to be in that category. But the way you described it from a business perspective, it is just him running this office with a couple other people. So that, and he actually took it over from a married dentist couple.
Yeah, my first business I bought from two dentists, husband and
Yeah.
wife, who were, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so there's some benefit. There are pros and cons to everything, but I'm sure that exists there as well. Well, okay, so that
yes.
answered my question on what inspired you to write your two books. So that is amazing, and thank you for humoring me in my little tangent that might have been a little uncomfortable.
No, that's
Um,
good.
well, so what has surprised you most about your journey to, entrepreneur, author, and where you sit today? What has surprised you most about this journey?
I think that it's, that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like, it's difficult. It's like,
I
you know,
love that answer. It's so honest. It's hard.
yeah, it just is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
man, it's when you have success in a certain area of your life, and of course, all parts of our lives, we have successes and failures. Some people are just great with this, and then whatever on the other side, the outcome isn't nearly as great. So we're all like that. We're all have our human
Sure.
and our perfections and imperfections, if you will. But in my head, like I knew it was going to be a challenge, and
Yeah.
but I never thought it would be as many challenges as
Yes.
what I've found. And
Yes.
yet, at the same point in time, if I look back on anything that I succeeded in, whether it's a particular sport or the dental business or learning about relationships and communication, all that kind of stuff, like oh my god, like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
struggle, 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 struggle. I mean, they're all a struggle, right?
Yes.
And so, like, why did I think this would be any different? Like, don't you learn? Like, you think you'd learn at this point, Shaunna, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, no,
No. No. Some of
but
us need
didn't
those
learn.
repeat lessons.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. That
So yeah, it's hard, and
it's
yet
hard.
what that makes the victories as they are that much sweeter. I think I mean, there's no
That's what
question
they
that I found
say.
that. Yeah. Oh yeah, and they're right. Yeah. Wherever
Yep.
they are, that committee of they
They.
happen to hit that one hitting that one on the head. I think.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
so when you look back to this is a good segue into the next question because when you think back to the younger you before you had ventured into any one of these difficult goals, what advice
Sure.
would you give him?
And the cool thing, like for your audience is like you and I can see each other. So when you say the younger you, like they don't know how old this person is that you're looking at, right? So I really appreciate, I really appreciate that. Yeah, the younger you, the advice that I would give
Yep.
to the older me now, um, I think it should be, how would you say, like never lose the hunger and the drive, and
Mm-hmm.
yet, well, one, be patient, but two is like celebrate the victories on the way.
Mm,
That I
such
was
good
part of
advice.
it. Yeah, I was part of a. This is an interesting thing. I'll try to boil it down to nuts and bolts. But I was part of a group in Chicago, all business people. Some of them, with 400, 500, 600 employees, and some like me that had four. And but there's certain standards you have to have, or certain criteria to be invited to the group. And so, but it's interesting. They talked about a concept called like the gap, and they would say that driven people, entrepreneurial people, that when you start off, you say like, "Here's the goal up here." Kind of like if anybody in your audience like graduated from high school or graduated from college or got accepted into a special program, that like if you're in college and you first start off, it's like, oh my god, this is so hard, and I'm not sure I'll ever graduate. But somewhere like the end of year two, middle year three, end of year three, you're like, oh, I know I'm going to graduate, like that's
Yeah.
done. And now you're looking at, so what job do I do, what master's program, what do I do? and you can kind of slide right through graduation and never even pay attention to the fact, like, well, 4 years ago you weren't even sure you'd be here.
You'd
Like,
make
this is a
it. Yeah.
major accomplishment, but now you kind of like, yeah, no, 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 I got a new goal. And so you
Yep.
never hit a goal because you're always mentally resetting to the new goal, and the old goal is no longer significant, and therefore there's no celebration. And there needs to be. So that would probably be, I think something for myself would be like, like put it in perspective and say, like, this is really significant what you
Yes.
accomplished because you're the one that said it would be significant if you
To
did it.
begin with.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's probably that. Be patient, keep pushing. Don't lose the hunger. But at the same point, be patient with the progress, and for sure celebrate along the way.
Celebrate the wins. Yeah. So one of the things I've done this year, at the beginning of the year, I'm not huge on New Year's resolutions, but I love setting
Yeah,
goals, and I do exactly what you just did. I'm constantly
yeah,
looking at the next one without taking time to necessarily celebrate my accomplishments and the things I've actually done. And so one of the things I did this year was I gathered some of my friends together, and we've got a bunch of champagne bottles, and we wrote our goals on the champagne bottles. Um, and
uh,
so the theory is when we reach that goal, we will come back together and celebrate each other's wins throughout the year. And
awesome.
it was to force myself to celebrate the wins. And some of them are silly and some of them are really big. I want to write another book. So one of them is new book. I don't even know if the champagne will still be good by the time I write that book, but that's okay. Like
Oh, it's
the
better
act
with
of
time, doesn't it?
not always with champagne. Um,
Oh, oh yeah, that's wine. Yeah.
Yes, yes, red wine especially. Yeah, so I did that for myself because I knew that celebrating my wins is something that I really that is the goal for me, right? Is to make myself celebrate the
Yeah,
wins. And so it was
for
creating a
sure.
fun way to do that with my friends.
That's a
So
great idea. Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
fun
wonder. I
anyways.
wonder. I wonder how bad a box of how long a box of chocolate chip cookies would last for me because the champagne wouldn't motivate me, but a box of chocolate chip cookies now that might. But I better giddy up. I better giddy up my goals, or I'm gonna have some hard bucks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we freeze Girl Scout cookies, so I can't imagine that it would be any different for chocolate chip cookies.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's right. Yes.
yeah. Just write
Awesome.
your goal on the box of
Good
cookies. I
idea.
love it. I
Sure.
love it. No, that's really good advice to celebrate our wins. I think I
Mhm.
feel like that's one of the things I'm pointing out to my clients often is to hang on a second, look at what you did, and give
Right.
yourself kudos is really important.
Yes, indeed.
So when you are looking forward to the future and where you want to go next, what do you now believe is possible for your own life?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Like I've always heard of the concept of leveraging, and in my clinical office, I certainly I didn't look at it as leveraging the team that we had. I looked at it and just said, well, if we can create an environment, a culture here where anybody that comes into the office will come out of the office as a better version of themselves because we're going to
Mm,
constantly force progress in that direction. You're going to read books about personal development, professional development, all that kind of stuff. So you'll be a better dental person. That's great. That selfishly speaking, that probably is my intent in this thing. But what I found was they became better spouses, better Christians, better citizens, better
mm,
all that stuff, better leaders in our world. And that
yes.
really kind of was the legacy that was left. And so, I guess I leveraged that, but now I look and say, like, yeah, you can go from helping one dentist to, double or triple the number of people they're helping to two dentists to three dentists. And I don't want to, the beauty of the program in my mind is that it's very much one-on-one. And so I'm not going to try to scale it by bringing employees in who would do what I do. It's like, no, that people hired David Pearce, so they're getting David Pearce. That's never going to change. But at the same point in time, you can scale that, create mastermind groups of my own, create
Oh, sure.
leadership boot camps of my own with that group, and affect other people. So my personal feeling is the United States is I mean, I would just make a statement. If ever in time we were low on leaders, we're low on leaders now.
Yep.
Like the parent, the problems in schools, in my mind, is from because of what's happening at home. There isn't leadership at home, so the kids aren't really kind of set up in that kind of environment. So problems happen. So anyway, I think it runs through, the political community, the religious community, the individual home community. Like we just lack
Yep.
leaders. So anything we can do to create leadership in people, it's good.
Yeah. So you are talking to scalability. It's just a different way, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no
Right.
longer
Exactly. Yeah.
scaling your specific business in terms of creating more of you, but scaling your reach
Right.
in terms of how many dentists reach how many people, and
That's
how
correct.
many leaders that creates. That is quite the ripple effect that you are generating.
Yeah. I should have said it that way. That's much better.
Well, it's a teamwork here. We just work
That's
together
right.
to figure it out. Well, so I
That's
guess
right.
my last question for you is, how can people find you?
Sure. Well, I'm right here. Easy to find. And so, yep. The name of the company is Ultimate Success in Dentistry. The website is ultimatesuccess.dentist. So there's no com in there or net or edu. It's just ultimatesuccess.dentist. So if you went there, you'd find my cell phone numbers even on there. Like, you want to talk to David? Here you go. There's lots, and there's some free giveaways and more all the time. There's a YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that, the usual stuff. But I'd say the website is probably the easiest place for people to find me. And then,
Fabulous.
I mean, I can give you the whole URL for LinkedIn and Facebook, but
Oh no, I can just
um,
link that for everybody in the show notes.
yeah,
But for people listening, sometimes they're not able to like click and go. They want to just be
yeah,
able to open up the app or
yeah.
whatever. So that is
And
perfect.
there's another website. If somebody's driving down the road, please don't write these things down, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If they're driving down the road, there's another on the second book idea of like how do you move money out of a business, and
Hmm.
that website ties right into the first one, so it just drops the same place, and that's called 4m40.com. So you
Okay.
can write it, spell it any way you want to. It all goes the same place. The number four, you can spell out the number, any way you want to. But
Yeah, yeah.
4m40.com takes you to the same place. So,
That's good business right there. Multiple websites, multiple spellings, all getting you to the same place. Brilliant.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
thanks.
Well,
Not my idea.
yeah, no, but leveraging the knowledge.
Good idea.
Yes.
That's
I
right.
love it.
That's right.
I love it. Well, this
That's
has been
right.
a really fun conversation, and I am so appreciative that you joined me today. So thank you again.
Thank you, Shaunna. Yeah, you run a great show, and I appreciate your ability to keep me in the river, keep
Yeah,
David flowing down the river. Don't let him climb out on the banks. And it's been a great chat. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
amazing. Well, hey, thanks for listening today. And thank you for your reviews. They mean so much to me and they help this podcast grow. I just love reading them. So if you haven't left one yet, please do. Now, listener, are you having your own start again moment? Your path to thriving after divorce is here. The future may be uncertain, but there is hope. We know that losing your identity as a wife can be disheartening, and the grief that follows is humbling. In fact, it can feel crippling. But if you are ready to get back on your feet, download my Start Again guide to get you pointed in the right direction. You can find it at shaunalee.com/startagain.